teasing the newcomer. They underestimated her martial arts skills. Beatrice "Bea" Kowalski pushed through the heavy doors of Crestwood Academy, her scuffed boots echoing on the slick marble floor. At 16, she was slight and unassuming, with auburn hair braided tightly down her back and clothes that looked more thrift store than trendy boutique. Her mom's job at the bakery barely covered the bills, let alone stylish clothes that might help her fit into this posh private school. She held her course list nervously, checking the room numbers as other students hurried past, barely noticing her. Leaving the gritty streets of West Boston for this fancy place felt like landing on another planet. Here, kids drove their own sports cars to school and carried designer handbags that cost more than her family's monthly rent. "Looking lost, newbie?" The voice came from behind, full of coldness. Bea spun around to see three girls blocking her way, led by a sleek, raven-haired girl with perfect eyebrows and a nasty smirk. "I'm Tiffany Sterling, and this is my domain. You look like you belong back in the dump you crawled out of." Bea's teeth clenched without her even trying. She'd heard that sort of talk before, knew what it meant. She kept her voice calm. "Just trying to find room 312. "Oh, isn't that cute?" She's trying to be polite. Tiffany's friends, a blonde named Brittany and another with dark curly hair called Megan, snickered on cue. "Let me guess, your mum bakes cookies or something equally gross." The comment hit close to home, but Bea knew better than to show weakness. She'd moved 5 times in the last 3 years as her mum searched for better work, and every new school brought the same problems. Stay quiet, avoid attention, survive until summer. That was the idea. "Excuse me," Bea said softly, trying to walk past them. Tiffany stepped in front of her again. "I don't think so. We have a little custom here at Crestwood. New students need to learn their place in the pecking order." She gave Bea a rude once-over. "And you, honey, are rock bottom." What Tiffany didn't realize was that Bea's quietness had nothing to do with fear or weakness. For the last 7 years, she'd trained at her grandpa's dojo in whatever town they were living in. Walter "Walt" Kowalski had been a judo champion before an accident ended his career, and he'd taught his granddaughter that the smallest person can still throw the biggest punch. But Bea had also learned hard lessons about fighting back. At her last school, she'd sent a bully to the emergency room after he'd trapped her in an empty classroom. The result had been suspension, angry phone calls, and her mom's decision to move yet again. She'd promised her mom she wouldn't fight anymore, no matter what. "I understand," Bea said simply, hoisting her backpack and walking away. Tiffany's laughter chased her down the hall like an unwelcome song. The rest of the morning went by in a daze of introductions and reading lists. By lunchtime, everyone knew about the new poor girl who was too scared to challenge Tiffany Sterling. Bea sat alone at a table in the corner of the cafeteria, pushing around a ham sandwich as voices buzzed around her. The air smelled like old pizza and floor cleaner. "That's her," she overheard someone whisper. "Tiffany made her cry in the hall." Bea hadn't cried, but she didn't bother correcting them. False stories had a way of becoming real in high school, and she'd learned not to waste breath fighting every lie. She was daydreaming when a lunch tray crashed to the floor next to her table. Looking up, she saw a scrawny boy with bright red hair and thick glasses struggling to pick up spilled food. His face was red with shame as other students snickered and pointed. "Sorry, so sorry," he stammered, trying to wipe up the mess with napkins. "I'm such a klutz." Without thinking, Bea knelt down to help him. "It's okay," she said, handing him a dropped orange. "It happens to everyone." The boy looked at her in surprise, as if kindness from a stranger was unheard of. "You're the new girl, right? I'm Ethan Pierce. Most people call me E. Beatrice Kowalski." She helped him gather the last of his lunch. "Don't worry about them. They'll find something else to pick on in 10 minutes. Ethan smiled gratefully, and Bea noticed he had kind eyes behind his glasses. There was something gentle about him that reminded her of her grandpa, who'd always told her to treat people with respect, no matter what. "Thanks," Ethan said. "You're probably the first person who's been nice to me all year." Before Bea could answer, Tiffany's voice sliced through the cafeteria noise. How touching. The freak found another freak to hang out with. Tiffany strutted up to their table with her usual crew, plus a few basketball players who looked eager to impress her. "Ethan, didn't I tell you to stay away from normal people? You might give them your cooties." "Leave him alone," Bea said quietly, standing up. Tiffany's eyes gleamed with amusement. "Oh, this is too good. The little mouse thinks she can protect the school's biggest loser." She turned to the crowd of onlookers. "Everyone, look at this. Our new charity case thinks she's tough." One of the basketball players, a huge guy with a shaved head, stepped closer to Bea. "You heard Tiffany, back off, trailer trash." The insult hung in the air like a slap. Bea felt her hands clench into fists without thinking, muscle memory from years in the dojo taking over, but she forced herself to breathe, to remember her promise to her mom. "I'm not looking for trouble," she said calmly. "Too bad," Tiffany sneered. "Trouble found you." She grabbed Bea's juice box and poured it over her head, soaking her hair and clothes. The cafeteria exploded in laughter and gasps. Someone was already recording with their phone. Bea stood there dripping, juice running down her face and onto the floor. Every part of her wanted to fight back, to show these spoiled brats what real pain felt like. But she thought of her mom working extra hours at the bakery to make rent, of the promise she'd made, of the dreams of college that would vanish if she got suspended again. So she said nothing. She grabbed her backpack and left the cafeteria, leaving behind a room full of laughter and the sight of Ethan looking after her with something that might have been admiration. The air outside felt cool against her wet clothes. The afternoon brought more insults. Someone had stuck a loser sign to her locker. In history class, Tiffany accidentally knocked Bea's textbook into a bucket of water. During gym, Brittany tripped her during volleyball, sending her sprawling across the gym floor. Each event was small enough to seem like an accident, designed to avoid real consequences while maximizing embarrassment. Bea endured it all silently, cleaning up messes and ignoring snickers. But the last straw came during 7th period study hall. Bea was sitting alone in the library, trying to dry out her soaked textbook, when Tiffany and her friends surrounded her table. The library smelled like old paper and floor wax. "We need to talk," Tiffany said, her voice sounding innocent. "I've been thinking about our little cafeteria fun, and I realized I might have been too hard on you." Bea looked up cautiously. In her experience, bullies never had a change of heart. "So here's what's going to happen," Tiffany went on. "Every day, you're going to bring me $15. Call it a friendship tax. In return, I'll make sure nobody messes with you anymore." "I don't have $15 a day," Bea said honestly. Tiffany's smile turned cruel. "Then you better find a way to get it. Ask your mom to bake some extra cookies, or maybe you can wash cars after school." She leaned closer. "Because if you don't pay up, things are going to get much worse for you." "And what if I refuse?" Bea asked softly. "Then you'll end up like Ethan Pierce. 4 years of total misery until you graduate, if you even make it that far." As if he had heard his name, Ethan appeared around the corner carrying a stack of books. Tiffany's attention immediately shifted to him. "Perfect timing," she said. "Ethan, come here. I want to show our new friend what happens to people who don't play along." Ethan froze, his face turning white. "I haven't done anything wrong." "You exist," Tiffany said. "That's enough." She nodded to the basketball player, who stepped forward and grabbed Ethan's books, throwing them across the library. Papers flew everywhere as Ethan desperately tried to pick them up. "Please," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "Those are due tomorrow." "Should have thought of that before you decided to be such a weirdo," Tiffany laughed. The basketball player grabbed Ethan's backpack and dumped it out, stomping on his calculator and breaking his glasses. Ethan fell to his knees, trying to salvage what he could of his destroyed belongings. "Stop," B said, standing up. "Sit down," Tiffany ordered, "unless you want to join him." But B was remembering other times, other victims. A girl at her old school who'd tried to hurt herself after months of teasing. A boy who'd stopped coming to school after bullies had posted mean pictures of him online. Ethan's gentle smile from earlier, the first kindness she'd felt all day. "I said stop," B repeated, her voice hard. Tiffany laughed. "What are you going to do about it? Cry? Run to your mommy?" The basketball player kicked Ethan's broken calculator across the floor. "Maybe we should give trailer trash the same treatment." That was when B finally lost it. Years of training, months of built-up anger, and a day's worth of insults turned into pure, focused anger. She moved faster than anyone expected, closing the distance to the basketball player in 2 quick steps. Her right hand shot out in a perfect strike, hitting his stomach and making him bend over. Before he could recover, she turned and delivered a powerful kick that sent him crashing into a bookshelf. Tiffany's other friends backed away in shock, but Tiffany stood frozen, her mouth open in disbelief. "You want to know what I'm going to do about it?" B asked, walking toward her. "I'm going to show you what happens when you mess with the wrong person." Tiffany finally found her voice. "You can't touch me. My dad is on the school board." "Your dad isn't here," B said. She grabbed Tiffany by the shoulders and lifted her off the ground, slamming her against the wall. "But I am." The force knocked the wind out of Tiffany, and for the first time in her life, she looked truly scared. "Please," she choked out. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean what?" B interrupted. "You didn't mean to pour juice on me. You didn't mean to destroy his things. You didn't mean to make his life miserable for 4 years." She released Tiffany, who slid to the floor, gasping. But B wasn't done. Brittany tried to run, but B caught her by the arm and spun her around. "Where are you going?" B asked. "I thought you liked to watch people get hurt." She swept Brittany's legs out from under her, sending her tumbling to the ground. Megan tried to help her friend up, but B was already there, grabbing both girls and knocking their heads together with a sound like wood breaking. The basketball player was trying to stand up, but B put her foot on his chest and pushed him back down. "Stay down," she ordered. "We're not finished yet." She turned back to Tiffany, who was still cowering against the wall. "You want to know what my grandpa does? He doesn't just make pastries. He taught me how to take down people too. People who think they're tough because they can pick on someone smaller." B grabbed Tiffany's designer purse and emptied it onto the floor, stomping on her expensive makeup and phone. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Having someone destroy your things?" "Stop, please," Tiffany sobbed. "I'll leave you alone, I promise." "You'll leave everyone alone," B corrected. "Not just me, Ethan and every other kid you've made suffer, because if you don't, I'll come back and finish what we started here." She looked around at the mess, at the 4 bullies lying scattered across the library floor like broken toys. News of this would spread through the school in hours. There would be trouble, maybe big trouble. But as she looked at Ethan, who was staring at her with a mix of shock and thanks, she knew she didn't care. "Are you okay?" she asked him, helping him to his feet. Ethan nodded, still speechless. His broken glasses hung crooked on his face, but his eyes were shining with something that looked like hope. "Good," B said. She turned back to Tiffany one last time. "Remember what I said. This is your only warning." As she walked out of the library, she could hear Tiffany crying behind her. The sound should have made her feel bad, but all she felt was satisfaction. For the first time since starting at Crestwood Academy, she felt like herself again. The next morning, the school was buzzing with stories about the library fight. Tiffany Sterling had been found passed out with a head injury. 3 other students had been treated for injuries. No one could believe that quiet Beatrice Kowalski had single-handedly beaten up 4 upperclassmen. But the truth was clear. Security footage showed everything, and other students said that Tiffany's group had started the fight. For once, the bullies couldn't blame others or say they were defending themselves. B was called to the principal's office as soon as she got to school. She thought she would be suspended, kicked out, maybe even arrested. Instead, she found Principal Davies watching the security video with a serious look. "Ms. Kowalski," he said without looking up, "I've been watching this video for the last hour, trying to figure out what happened." "I defended myself and another student," B said simply. "You put 4 students in the hospital. They put themselves there when they decided to attack someone who could fight back." Principal Davies finally looked at her, and B was surprised to see something like approval in his eyes. "Tiffany Sterling has been a problem at this school for 4 years. Her father's position on the school board has kept her from being punished. But this," he pointed at the screen, "this changes everything." "Am I expelled?" B asked. "You should be," the principal admitted. "But I've looked at Tiffany's past record, and I've talked to other students about what's been happening. What you did was wrong, but what they've been doing is worse." He leaned back in his chair. "You're suspended for 2 days. When you come back, you'll be required to attend anger management sessions, and if anything like this happens again, you're gone. Understand?" B nodded. It was better than she had expected. "There's one more thing," Principal Davies said. "Ethan Pierce has asked to see you before you leave." Ethan was waiting in the hallway outside the office, his broken glasses replaced with a new pair. When he saw B, his face lit up with a smile that changed everything about him. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi yourself," B replied. They walked outside together, not talking until they reached the parking lot. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Thank you," he said. "No one's ever stood up for me like that before." "It was the right thing to do," B said. "Besides, they had it coming." Ethan laughed, a sound of pure joy that made B's heart jump. "Tiffany tried to come to school today, but turned around and left when she saw me. Brittany and Megan won't even look at anyone. It's like a completely different place." "Good," B said. "Maybe now other kids won't have to go through what you did." They reached the bus stop, and Ethan turned to face her. "I know you're suspended, but when you come back, would you maybe want to get lunch together? I mean, if you don't mind being seen with the school weirdo." B looked at his face, seeing past his shyness to the hope underneath. There was something about Ethan that drew her in, a kindness that was rare in her experience. In a world full of Tiffany's, he was something special. "You're not weird," she said. "You're kind. And yes, I'd like that very much." Ethan's smile could have lit up the whole school. "Really?" "Really," B confirmed. "But I should warn you, I might not be the most popular person to hang out with after this." "I don't care about popular," Ethan said. "I care about real. And what you did back there, that was the most real thing I've ever seen." When B returned to school 2 days later, she found a completely changed place. Students who had never spoken to her before nodded in the halls. Teachers looked at her with new respect, and Tiffany Sterling was nowhere to be seen. She found Ethan at their usual lunch table, no longer sitting alone. 2 other kids who had been picked on had joined him, and they welcomed B warmly. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. "How was suspension?" Ethan asked as she sat down next to him. "Quiet," B admitted. "I had time to think." "About what?" "About you, mostly." The words came out before she could stop them, and she felt her face get hot. "I mean, about what you said. About being real." Ethan's eyes lit up behind his glasses. "What about it?" "I've spent so long trying to be invisible, trying not to cause trouble. But maybe there's a difference between causing trouble and standing up for what's right." She looked around the cafeteria, seeing how the feeling had changed. Students seemed happier, less afraid. "Maybe sometimes you have to fight to protect the things that matter." "Like what?" Ethan asked softly. Bea met his eyes, seeing her own feelings reflected there, like people who are worth protecting. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and Bea realized that everything had changed, not just the school, but how she saw herself. She wasn't just the quiet girl trying to stay out of sight anymore. She was someone who would stand up for others, someone who wouldn't let bad things happen. And for the first time in her life, she was someone who might actually be falling in love. As the weeks went by, Bea and Ethan grew closer. She learned that under his shy exterior was a smart mind and a funny sense of humor. He found in her not just someone who would protect him, but someone who truly understood what it was like to be an outsider. Tiffany Sterling eventually came back to school, but she was nothing like she had been. Her bullying was over, stopped by a girl who'd shown her that real strength didn't come from hurting others, but from protecting them. And in the end, Beatrice Kowalski learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is exactly what everyone tells you not to do. Sometimes you have to fight, not because you want to, but because you have to. Sometimes the smallest person can throw the biggest punch, especially when they're fighting for something that matters. Most importantly, she learned that love could grow anywhere, even in the middle of a high school war zone, between a fighter and the boy who taught her that some things are worth protecting, no matter what. Character count. 2017.